Greetings, this is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct from Black Facts Headquarters Central this evening. Well, I just have to say it's better late than never tonight because we were delayed with serious technical difficulties, which we still seem to be suffering from, but we're knocking them out one by one. I thought I had a solution for this problem because we had a problem with this yesterday, but not quite. So, such is life. Meanwhile, we're carrying on, and we'd like for you to do the same by going ahead, giving us a like if you're watching on Facebook, thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and then go ahead and spread the word far and wide. Black Facts is still here. We are not trying to hide. We are trying to give you a nice ride, take you on a nice ride, as a matter of fact. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, let's do this little dance. Our proverb for tonight is, we used to play Oware together, but it has come to a stop. We used to play Oware together, but it has come to a stop. Now, that's up to you to think about what does that mean. I think it'll come to you fairly quickly. Meanwhile, let's move on. Let's move on with our story for tonight, which is part of a golden legacy. The story of, oh, I see that's not working yet either. Okay, let me go black. Now I gotta fix this too. Wow. Boy, this is really just sticking in my craw. Can't seem to get anything to work right tonight. Nope, I went to the wrong place there too. Let me go over here. Okay, here we go. Whoops. Let me go. Nope, not there. Here. There we go. Now we'll get this together and okay, now here we go. All right, and tonight our story is about another black inventor, Lewis H. Latimer, a scientist an engineer, scientist and engineer, truly an electrical engineer and a genius of his time. Keep in mind, when we say genius, what we're talking about is the ability to become an expert in some area. That is showing genius, the ability to become an expert in an area. So any one of us could be a genius, an electrical. You could be an a genius at electrical engineering, a genius at playing cards, a genius at anything that you want to be a genius at if you put in the time and the effort. And that's the key. So it's not necessarily that you were born that way, but you had to, you were born a particular way, but then you had to work at it. All right. And so that's what we mean when we say genius. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and read our story for tonight. And I apologize, these images here are not following the story, but let's see what I can do about that. We'll get it started here from the beginning. Lewis Howard Latimer, pioneer of the electric lighting industry. I was one of the pioneers of the electric lighting industry from its creation until it had become worldwide. Lewis H. Latimer. The telephone system, as we know it, is the product of many, many minds to whom honor should be given. Alexander Graham Bell said that. The Latimer story really begins with his father's escape from slavery in Virginia and arrival in Boston in 1831, where he later met and married another runaway slave from Virginia. But in 1842, slave owner James Gray arrives in Boston. Your Honor, this here is proof that George Latimer is my property. Arrest Latimer immediately. But meanwhile, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Garrison, you must help us. We'll do our best, Rebecca. Frederick Douglass was also a runaway slave, and William Lloyd Garrison, Frederick Douglass, also a runaway slave, and William Lloyd Garrison were two of the most famous spokesmen against slavery. Speeches were made throughout Boston. What kind of law gives one man rights over another man or makes one man the property of another? Let us all end in justice before injustice ends us all. And the city was outraged. The law of the day would have returned George Latimer to slavery, so money was collected and his freedom was purchased. Free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last. Soon after, a law was passed preventing state officers from hunting runaway slaves. Free at last, the Latimers returned to their lives of poverty. Oh joy, oh joy. Any odd jobs today, ma'am? When on September 4, 1848, they had an addition to their family. Let's call him Lewis. Yes, dear. Lewis was bright and very talented. Early in his youth, he showed his ability to draw and later became a very talented artist. After school, Lewis sold the Liberator, William Lloyd Garrison's anti-slavery newspaper. John Brown's been captured. Read all about it. Read all about it. John Brown's been captured. Abraham Lincoln elected president. Fort Sumter attacked. The South leaves the Union. Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation, and then all-out war breaks out. The Civil War. Latimer's two brothers joined the Union Army. Lewis was too young, but wanted to help free his people. Slavery won't end unless the war is won. So he raised his age and joined the Navy. The Civil War ended, and Lewis was honorably discharged. Just what I've been looking for. Crosby and Gould, patent attorneys. Okay, office boy, the pay is $3 a week. And Lewis says to himself, I'm going to be a draftsman. But in the meanwhile, out loud, he says, I'll take it. When he wasn't running errands or sweeping, etc., he copied simple drawings. Doing fine, but I can use a little help, says Lewis. After work, he practiced, he studied, and practiced some more. Soon, most of Latimer's time was spent at the drafting board. Thought we hired an office boy, but you're a draftsman now, son. Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Shortly after, he became an expert draftsman and an inventor. Congratulations, Lewis. On February 10, 1873, Latimer received a patent for a better water closet for railroad cars. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term water closet, we now call it a toilet or a flushing toilet. Yes, basically. Latimer fell in love and he courted Mary Wilson. Mary, quite contrary, and wrote a poem for her. He called it Ebon Venus. Let others boast of maidens fair, of eyes of blue and golden hair. My heart, like needles ever true, turns to the maid of ebon hue. I love her from her form of matchless grace, the dark brown beauty of her face, her lips that speak of love's delights, her eyes that gleam as stars at night. Or marble Venus, let them rage, who set the fashions of the age, each to his taste. But as for me, my Venus shall be ebony. Latimer was a poet too. He later wrote a whole book of poetry. Oh, now we have to try to find that. Latimer's Book of Poetry. In December 1873, Mary Wilson and Lewis Latimer were married, and they lived a very comfortable and happy life, enjoying promotions and a very high salary for 100 years ago. You are the new chief draftsman, Lewis. It pays $80 a week, too. Near the office of patent attorneys Crosby and Gould was a school for deaf-mute people, where Alexander Graham Bell taught deaf people to talk. Alexander Graham Bell was born in Scotland in 1847 and came to Boston from Canada in 1871 to show teachers how to teach deaf people to speak. His interest in finding a way to help deaf people hear led him to one of the world's greatest inventions, the telephone. Mr. Watson, come here, I want you, he says through his telephone to his assistant in another room. During that time, Mr. Bell had come to patent attorneys Crosby and Gould. Mr. Latimer will make all of the patent drawings and help you with the descriptions. They worked together in the evenings. Congratulations, Mr. Bell, until the first patent was filed and approved on March 7, 1876. In 1879, Thomas Alva Edison invented the electric light. He also invented the phonograph, the first moving pictures, and talking movies. And when they say the electric light, we're talking about the incandescent lamp. Inventor Hiram Maxim had also claimed this invention, but lost in court to Edison. Latimer was also interested in electricity and was studying engineering. With Hiram Maxim, chief engineer of the U.S. Electric Lighting Company, Mr. Latimer, I'd like you to join me. A pleasure, Mr. Maxim. Maxim was also the inventor of the machine gun. Latimer learned all that was known about electric lighting, and in 1881, he and Joseph Nichols received a patent on their electric light invention. This is a better way of connecting carbon filaments. The filament is the material in a light bulb that glows when electric current passes through. Now, these are the old style light bulbs, not the new ones. The, what do they call them now? Oh, I can't even think of the name of them. They got a name for these new light bulbs, these little tiny ones that they have now. But the old style light bulbs that they still do make, you'll see there's a little piece of wire in the middle of it, and that's what you call a filament. And it heats up, and that's what gives us the light. But in January 1882, Latimer received a patent for his most important invention, a process for manufacturing carbon filaments. It's cheaper to make, safer to use, lasts much longer too. Doesn't get any better than that. Latimer's carbon filament was far better than those in use at the time. Latimer was now chief engineer of the U.S. Electric Lighting Company and in charge of installing electric lighting plants. Now, when electric lighting first came in, or electricity first came in, if you wanted to have it in your house, you had to install a dynamo, which was almost like a furnace. It was a big thing, and it sat in your basement somewhere, and that dynamo would give you your electric power. So they didn't have it coming from like a main station, an electric station outside of your house. It was something that was inside of each person's house if they wanted to have electricity. If you couldn't afford to install the dynamo, you just had to use candles or whale oil or some other substance you're going to have to burn. So he was in charge of, Latimer was in charge of installing electric lighting plants in New York, Philadelphia, Canada. Even had to learn a little French. In those days, street lights were wired in series. So you had a switch, then you had a power source, but and then you had the lights, and each one was connected to the next one. But if one light went out, they all went out. That was a bit of a problem. Latimer did not wire his lights in series. He wired them in parallel so that each light had its own switch. And by doing that, one light could go out, but the others would stay on. And if you notice, that's how the lights are wired today. Because when one light goes out on your street, the other lights are still on until somebody comes out to put in a new light bulb. Yes, these are fine. Latimer was also in charge of the production of light bulbs using his carbon filament. Hiram Maxim owned the Maxim Weston Electric Light Company in London, England. When can you leave to set up a factory over there? Right away. So Latimer leaves for England. He set up a factory in London and taught them to produce light bulbs using his carbon filament. In 1884, he accepted a job with Thomas Alva Edison, and in 1890, Latimer wrote the first book on electric lighting. It was called Incandescent Electric Lighting, a practical description of the Edison system. The book was a guide for engineers and was highly praised. Soon after, he transferred to Edison's legal department, where he was of great value as an expert witness in court battles over Edison's patents. During these years, Latimer continued to invent, and he received a few more patents. In 1918, an important group of inventors and scientists that worked closely with Edison formed the Edison Pioneers, and Lewis Latimer was a member of this famous group from the very beginning. On December 11, 1928, Lewis Howard Latimer died at the age of 80 years old, and the Edison Pioneers published this statement: "We heartily mourn his going, so much as we rejoice in pleasant memory at having been associated with him in a great work for all people under a great man. Mr. Latimer was a full member and an esteemed one of the Edison Pioneers." On May 10, 1968, Lewis Latimer was again remembered when a school in Brooklyn, New York was named in his honor, the Lewis Latimer School. I was one of the pioneers in the electric light industry from its creation until it had become worldwide. And that, my friends, is the story of Lewis Latimer, an Edison pioneer, a pioneer of electric lighting all over the world, not just in the U.S., but all over the entire planet. So now, when you go to China, when you go to Japan, when you go to Europe, even when you go to Africa, you find electric lighting using the same system that was originally devised by Edison, but was improved on by and codified by Lewis Latimer. So a couple of books I mentioned in there. We're going to be looking for those books to see if we can bring those books out and share them with you as well. In the meanwhile, we're going to say peace out without a doubt. Sorry for being so late tonight, but sometimes these things happen. If this happens in the future, you notice that we're really late. We don't show up on time, as may happen from time to time. Then we do have a full-fledged series of playlists that you can use. We had one for the adults for tonight. Adults for today, which is called, actually it was for the adults yesterday. And that one is called Mind Over Matter. And the one for today was for the children, and it was called Black Genius. So you can always, and so for each month, we have one playlist for the adults and one playlist for the youth. And so you can go to those playlists and find everything that we've done during the month. If you missed anything, you can go there and find what you missed. And you can also find videos from other, that have been produced by other people, other organizations may have produced videos that we think would be of interest and to go along with our topic. So make sure to check those playlists on a regular basis. Meanwhile, peace out. As we said before, don't forget to subscribe to our Tubular Black Facts channel, and we will be black tomorrow at noon and 9. This is Doc Ock at noon and 9, signing out.